Hello, joyful ones. I'm Joan Craig with Choose Joyful Health, and today I'm so happy to bring you an interview with Gail Zugerman of Growing Older with Gusto. And Gail and I connected recently because we both share a passion for helping people age well at every age, not just after 60 or after 70, but even earlier in our lives. We want to age well with joy and vitality. So thank you so much for joining me, Gail.
Thanks for having me, Joan.
Yeah, it's fun. We've connected on this passion. So tell us about your podcast. Who's usually listening to the podcast, and who's with you as a guest?
Well, hopefully, I hope my listeners will include baby boomers, Generation Xers, and millennials. My guests tend to skew a little bit older, over the age of 75, and they're selected for a reason. The reason is these are people who are showing by example that they have grown older in a positive and productive and joyful way. And I felt that they would be the greatest candidates to dispense wisdom to the other generations that are coming behind them.
Yeah, I love that, and I've enjoyed listening to the stories that you've shared there. So there must be something within you, because I think when we have a creative process and a podcast takes some work to put together, there must be some inner motivation that brought you to this. What is inside you that
You
made
are
you want to
so
bring this?
right. You are so right. I've had the good fortune to enjoy a lot of longevity within my own family and extended family. And I learned a lot from being able to spend time with older people. The one person that pops to mind is my great grandmother, who lived to be 91. She was joyful, she was positive, and she lived every day to the fullest. In fact, the day before she passed away, she was dancing at a party. And she was somebody who had faced a lot of different challenges and losses in her life, but she just kept going. And she really was a good example of somebody living in the moment. So I had a very close relationship with her, spent a lot of time with her, and learned a lot of valuable lessons from her. And there were other people that also had longevity in the family and taught me how to grow older in a way. So I thought, wow, why is it that so much focus in our society is given to people in their 20s? And a lot of it that is through media hype. And I thought, this would be great because so many people are afraid of growing older, to be able to provide them with a forum through the podcast of learning from older people that there are alternatives. There are ways of growing older with gusto.
Yeah, I love that. And I've loved listening to the stories and the lessons on there. So speaking of that, like I'm sure you've over the years culled some wisdom, not only in your own life, but from the guests and the people you've interviewed. What are some of the key takeaways?
I think some of the key takeaways are that life's always going to present challenges as we move ahead. And so much of enjoying our life is how we respond and react to our challenges. So, whatever life hands out to you, everybody has different hands that they're dealt. But a lot of it is let's respond in a way that is productive. Let's respond in a way that maybe lets us get out of our own heads in space and think about the world around us. That's probably one of the most valuable things I've learned so far.
Yeah, and when I think about my parents and my grandparents, really that's how they lived. People didn't have time to sit around and wallow in something. You just had to keep going, get up and do the next thing in front of you. And I think we can definitely learn from that.
And I think this whole idea of living in the moment is so true because I think of my father who lived in 97, and he, of course, suffered a lot of losses along the way. But he didn't think about that. He just kept going. And he actually, after he retired, went back to school, and he engaged his computer teacher to come give him personal lessons. What happened next was they became best friends. So late in life, he said to me, "Who would ever think I'd have a new best friend?" So there you go.
And awesome that he was into technology in his 90s. That's wonderful. He
Right.
hadn't given up. Yeah. And here
Right.
you are doing a
Yeah.
technological podcast too. And here we are on YouTube. So Cool. Well, when I've listened to your podcast, I've heard some great stories. So, what stands out for you as some of the memorable ones that you've heard?
A couple of memorable ones would be a couple where the wife is in a wheelchair, they can't get out of their condo, and yet they have been so productive. How have they been productive? The wife loved a garden when she was younger. What did she do? She decided to create a garden for the underserved children in a community in Chicago so that they could learn how to eat more nutritiously. So from her wheelchair, she designed and donated money to grow this garden.
Mm.
Also, she and her husband created a scholarship program, and they had children come over, they interviewed them, and they decided who would receive the scholarship to go on to college. So here they are, relegated to their condo, yet they're being productive and doing things.
Mm.
That was one person. Another interview was with my exercise instructor, CK, who's 86 years young, who teaches a class at my health club called Dynamic Forever. And she gears the class towards the older woman or man. And she teaches the class 3 times a week. Every class is different. She comes in, no notes, it's all in her head. She's nimble. She pays attention one-on-one to everybody so nobody injures themselves. But she's always upbeat. So I invited her on the podcast. Wow, what I learned about her was amazing. She had such adversity in her life, and her life took so many wild turns, yet she is cheerful and happy at this point in her life and being productive too.
Well, and I remember from that podcast, because that was one that stood out for me, being in the fitness industry, that I think you were talking about how long she makes you hold the plank in the
Oh, that's
podcast.
right.
Like,
Yes.
and also that she didn't even really get into fit. She like got into bodybuilding in her 50s,
Right.
after she'd raised
Right.
her family. So that's a great one. We recommend everyone go check out CK, right?
Right. That's it.
That
CK.
was great. And so she's still teaching your class. She's 86. That's wonderful.
She is. She's up for hip replacement in July. She'll be back, she says. So.
That's great. I bet she will. That's great. Well, now you and I have chatted in the past, and you told me you kind of have a book in the works. So tell us more about the book.
Well, my podcast partner, Scott Winteroth, and I decided during the pandemic that we should turn our attention to creating an ebook. So it's not a traditional book in the sense of that, but it will be available on the website when it's finished. And basically what it will talk about are the 5 groupings that we've discovered through the blog and the podcast of themes that are woven throughout all my interviews. And that's going to be the gist of the ebook.
Mm. Well, could you tell us more about the themes? Yeah, I'd love to.
Some of the themes include stay relevant, which of course includes technology, social connections, how important they are, keeping a sound body and mind, having a purpose to your life, and a positive attitude.
Yeah, I remember from your podcast that you always ask the people about their social connections and how that's been a key.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. Well, we're going to link to the contact information below this video so that people can find your website and get on your email list so that they can get updates and get the ebook when that's available. So what parting words would you give us or other wisdom that you've gained?
I would say enjoy every day. Life is so precious. Think of new ways to spend your time. Keep learning. Keep meeting new people. Listen to older people. They'll pave the way for you.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. And we will welcome everyone. Yeah, we'll welcome everyone to check out Gail's website and podcast. And they are short listens, about 15, 20 minutes or under 30 minutes.
20 to 30 minutes.
I'm a big, I listen when I walk, so I can go around the block in 30 minutes and listen. So we encourage you to get your joyful health while you get your gusto. That'll be fun.
Great.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Joan.
Okay.